Recording. So I think this is funny. Hey, welcome to Coffee Talk. It's what day is it? What day is it? It's September 23rd, Friday, September 23rd. And today's a great Friday. Thank God for Friday TGIF. And it is the 23rd. Thank you very much. Homeless was just asking if I have a job. Like, how are you doing this from home? Because I've been working home for 25 years. Wait, I've been working from home since 1998, and several years before that. So how many years is that? Something like 22, 23 years, 24 years, something like that. Yeah, and which is fun because I worked really hard to get in a job in the internet because I knew it would allow me to work from home and very early on. And then IBM, just a fun fact, IBM has been, you say what you want about IBM, but IBM has had one of the highest percentage of remote work employees since the beginning. So I don't work for IBM anymore, but when I did, for all 12 years that I worked for them, I went into the office a total of maybe 5 days. No, that's not true. Probably 12 days. I flew into Boulder for a conference. I met with my other team and we architected a new solution and we built it remotely. It was really great. That's my suggestion, by the way. If you're going to do that, you need to have your team meet each other at least once in person. So if you're managing a remote team, make it happen. Make at least 1 week where everybody physically can come into the room together. And make that connection and see the person and know that, that voice is not somebody to be yelled at. So they have somebody to visualize instead of the stupid little avatar. Uh, yeah, that's my suggestion. That's my only suggestion to managers who are managing remote teams. Other than that, just get out of the way and let them do their thing. Um, so yeah, but I do have a job. Yeah, have a pretty good job actually. I'm really enjoying. I just want to say that since we're talking about work, I am really. I know we're understaffed. We've lost, at this point we're down 4 people from when I started. We have 4 less people on the team, including all of the people who made the Kubernetes cluster that we have. They're all gone now, so we're just left with the leftovers. Seriously, we are left with the leftovers, and it's been a struggle, but it's also been really fun. All the people on this team, I really like them, which is great. Not everybody gets that, right? Not everybody gets the chance to enjoy working with the people that they're working with. Mm. But I really do. I really do. I really do enjoy it. And speaking of work, let me just switch over to. We didn't send a notification out to anybody. I think people should just know that we're here. Um, and so we're not going to do any QCA today. We did some QCA yesterday. We got some great questions, conversations, and advice that it's going to be posting tonight. And if just in case you're wondering, yesterday's coffee talk is just posted like 5 minutes ago to YouTube. So we're a day delay because of Twitch terms of service. And as I start out the day, one of the things I do during coffee talk is I plan out my day, and just really quickly. I know that's kind of boring, but whatever. So I am going to be. Got to remember to submit my time card today. So don't you forget, if you're a contract employee, make sure you submit your time card every day, every week. I get paid by the week actually. And I learned a lesson the hard way, by the way. If you're working for tech systems, which I do, and that's not doxing anything. I don't dox the contracts that I work on, but I don't mind telling people about tech systems. If you don't submit your timesheet on time, you don't get paid, and then it makes an exception, and then it has to go through all this formality to get reapproved. So it can push. I've done that only once so far, but it creates all this formality, and you have to wait for like a week or two to get that paycheck. So, you teach kids coding? Nice. Yeah, I started teaching. Teaching, kids, I guess, 9 to 19 coding in 2013. I retired to do that and made SkillStack at that time. And this is the leftovers from SkillStack, really. And now I work for corporate America again. So yeah, I wanted to announce that. Hey, how's it going, Bulverstadt? wanted to announce that at 10 a.m. today, so probably earlier than that, actually, right after Coffee Talk, and I published the video, we're going to be doing a special Linux home lab in it. We do these, at least twice a week, and I'm going to be completely focused on etcd. So we'll be diagramming, the infrastructure from my servers over here. I should be getting the remaining hardware today to finish out my home lab networking, and stuff. And then I can take some close up photos of the actual rack, and you can judge me and make fun of my networking. I'm sure LTM Bob's gonna have so much fun judging my networking. Like, oh my god, those cables are so gross. But yeah, we're gonna set up a 3-core etcd thing. Interestingly, Steve Francia just posted a Kubernetes blog. Steve Francis, sorry, Francis. So that's gonna be something to read. I think it's the same guy. Maybe it's a different guy. Steve Francia is a Go guy, and Steve Francis is a Kubernetes person, I guess. Anyway, we did start it has nothing in it right now, but if somebody wants to help us, we have a Learn Kate's repo now. There's absolutely nothing in it. This was kind of an ad hoc thing that I made last night while we were streaming. We're like, somebody asked who they should watch and what streamers I suggested for them to go look at to learn Kubernetes. And I mean, I know Het Tanis does a lot of Kubernetes stuff. Alta 4, they do a lot. So I started making a list, and then I thought, what the hell? We should put other resources in here for how to learn Kubernetes. And Het Tanis has got a lot of stuff listed as well. So this is just kind of my personal list of favorite things. I mean, for example, Het Tanis has recommended that people use the Udemy course for Kubernetes learning, and it really has kind of convinced me to give it another look. I actually bought the Kubernetes Udemy course and immediately demanded a refund because it was so bad. So that was my experience with it. So having said that, I don't mean to be, I really, really do not like the teaching style of Mumshad Mamabeth, or whoever this person is. I just absolutely loathe it. I cannot watch it. You know what though? Het loves it, and Het's a good person, and Het has said overwhelmingly that this is like the standard in Kubernetes training. I don't know if I buy that. I do. I prefer, but actually, not only do I prefer books over it. Not only do I prefer. Do you told them about it? Nice. And I imagine this works for some people. I absolutely loathe it. I hate it. I hate the style of it. You pass the CKA because you learned the stuff, and this is where you learned it. It doesn't mean that this is the only place to learn it, right? So, and if anything, it's going to be exhaustive. So I am kind of on the fence. I mean, it's $20. Who cares, right? I mean, I spent more than that on on Ethernet cables. And so, I mean, yeah, but I'm not, okay. So I've said this before, but there's an importance to, comprehensive learning and project-based learning. And I think most people actually tend to like challenge-based learning. Like, a lot of people use Udemy all the time. That doesn't mean that it's the right thing for everybody, right? So, but I do think that it's good. It's taken everything in me to not make a Udemy course for myself. My wife tells me, she's like, you should take your beginner boost and then clean it up and put it on Udemy. And I've talked about this before. I mean, there's actually a video on YouTube probably about me talking about this. Every year, probably about fall time when things kind of get slow down a little bit. We're indoors a little bit more. I always go through this reflection. I'm always like, well, if we cleaned up the boost, then, my boost content for each year would just be the refreshing of my Udemy content. And then I could actually have, 54,000 people go through a structured course about how to learn, the stuff that I teach in the boost. And I've struggled with this. I really have. I've struggled with it because, you obviously you have to polish it up more. You have to fill in the gaps, and in the morning and contemplate. It kind of is. So, one of the best things about this, but you can't stand it. Yeah, Grimkey, you can't stand it. Prefer to just bash my head on a project for a while. Me too. And then read a book to figure out everything you did wrong. Absolutely. That is my approach. Morning. Grimkey, I'm glad you said that because that, as I said, I think the one universal truth here is that everybody learns differently. We respond to different methods of learning. And, I like that negative comment on my YouTube video on the boost the other day. It was like, you do better to just like work on it on your own instead of listening to this guy go drone on for 4 hours. And that's exactly what I said on the first day if they'd actually watched that video. I was like, this is not for everybody. I'm just going to sit here and do stuff and you can take from it what you want. But this is, the idea is that you would sit next to me and we would just be coding on stuff together, but you would be largely independent, which is what I did when I personally mentored people one-on-one. The difference is that I can't adapt to you because I don't know who you are. And that's been something I've struggled with for the past year as somebody helping people learn is how to make generalized content for 54,000 people like this that actually appeals to everyone. I think the only solution to that is to create lists of resources and let people navigate their own way and find other people that they might want to listen to. And, I'm going to use the Parmegian again as an example. Okay. So the Parmegian and I have resolved any drama from our past pretty much. We're just forgetting about it. We're not even going to talk about it anymore. And the Parmegian has a very specific style. There is definitely overlap in the things that we're covering, which is good. And so if people respond to the Parmegian style, they should go to the Parmegian and watch. And we rated the Parmegian on this thing before. And I don't have a problem recommending that now. I've changed quite a bit actually. And just like, it's just like, I don't feel like Het Tennis has got me, this kind of new perspective that I have, it has kind of got me thinking, well, for Dumb Chicken Biryani and for Het Tennis, Mama Beth has been a fantastic resource, right? But I seriously, I could not stand, it has nothing to do with race or language. I just could not stand the style of these courses. I just could not deal. I could not deal. It was like, willfully, like, I don't know, throwing myself into a corporate training, hell. I'm so sorry. That's so negative. It sounds so negative. I don't mean it to sound negative, but I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. No, you can't make me. And I immediately give me a refund. Give me a refund. I want my fucking $30 back. Because I was like, as somebody else said, that's not my style. My style is to, spend a lot of money on a rack over here and to go suffer with etcd and the documentation. And by the way, which is all officially available to you on when you do the test, right? So another reason to not, I think particularly for Kubernetes, another reason to not learn Kubernetes through one of these things is that, you can do it, but if you're going to do it, supplement it, right? Because when you take the test, you can use Kubernetes.io, you can use the GitHub site, you can use all of those resources. So when I set out to learn Kubernetes last year, I promised myself I wouldn't use anything but the official resources that are allowed on the test, that I would force myself to be able to learn everything to pass the test by using nothing but the standard resources. And believe me, I found tons of problems with that. And I streamed about it. And I was like, we have people on the board, the Cloud Native board here. I am not saying don't pay money for Udemy courses. There's a part of me that, as a streamer and as kind of a curator And that's what got us onto this, right? Because I was doing the Learn Kubernetes thing, right? I'm like, okay, well, do I accept a PR that says that I should list, Mama Best course, or am I, kind of a dick about it and not even listing it, right? So what I think I'm going to end up doing is and this is the same way with Go. There is no good Go resource to learn right now at all. There's literally nothing to learn Go 1.18 properly on the internet anywhere. The only place you can learn Go 1.18 properly is by reading the specification, reading Go Essentials, which is also part of it, reading the style guidelines and stuff for the Go project itself, and reading the source code of projects that use it. That is literally the only place on the planet where you can get quality Go education at all. Anything else is outdated, sometimes dangerously so. There's a published book that I paid $50 for. And I've talked about this before. I'm kind of annoyed. Take a breath, Rob. It's only 8 o'clock in the morning. You don't need to get this angry. I paid $50 for a book that claimed to cover 1.18 generics, and it covered the 1.18 generics from the specification published in 2020. The book is completely wrong. It's no surprise it's published by Packt Publishing, which does no editing and no vetting whatsoever. Let me tell you right now, do not buy any resource from Packt Publishing ever. I have never once, and I have spent tons of money on Packt Publishing. I've been approached to be a writer for Packt Publishing several times. I know about how they work. What they do is they flatter mediocre engineers, which would have been me, and they get them to write a book because they want to be first to market. Packt Publishing, O'Reilly is better. O'Reilly has diminished a little bit. And O'Reilly has been influenced by the tide of people getting stuff out first. They get all the money. And so the O'Reilly material has not been as quality as it was in the 90s when I owned every single O'Reilly book ever made. No Starch is pretty good. Yeah. No Starch Press and Addison Wesley and stuff like that. LeanPub's also fantastic. Usually, I mean, the problem with LeanPub is it's complete Wild West. You just don't know what you're going to get. So, but in terms of publishers, if it says Packt Publishing on it, run the other way. Don't give them a dime. I mean, they actually allowed a book to be published that claimed 1.18 generics that covered a specification that was alpha that never made it into the final version. And they put it on the fucking cover. There should be a class action lawsuit against them for that. I'm reading it. I'm like, this has nothing to do with how generics were actually implemented. It's so dangerous. Oh my God. It's just so bad. So there you got it. I've ranted against Packt Publishing before. So just be sure that their strategy as a company is beat everybody else out, get as many people to write, flatter the egos of people, and then get them to push stuff out with no editing whatsoever. And they beat everybody to market. They have tons of stuff. When you search for a thing, for a book, they're the first people to pop up. Why? Because they push crap out before it even gets one layer of vetting at all. And so it beats everybody out, and then they get people buy it, and it's a huge scam. Packt Publishing is a scam. It's 100% a scam publisher. And don't do it. Don't do it. I'm warning you, don't do it. And don't. And if they try to like massage your ego to get you to write for them, just know that the rest of the internet understands what Packt Publishing is. And if you put your name on a Packt, A-Press is good. But if you put your name on a Packt Publishing book, you pretty much just signed your own death bill in terms of reputation. Because every single time I open up a different Packt Publishing piece of crap, I'm like reading the summary of the engineer in there, and I'm like, this poor sap got sucked into writing for Packt Publishing. And then I'm like, oh my God, now they're going to be associated. They're going to be a Packt writer, all this time. That means that they basically, if you write a book for Packt Publishing, that means that you were successfully trolled by their process to the point where you put in your own energy into writing this crap. And now it's there. If you are that desperate to get published, do something on LeanPub or whatever, and then own the whole thing, and then you can get more money. So, and I've thought about writing books a lot, but I started 3 books. I got pretty far into Learn Polyglot Programming, but Manning is hit or miss, you know? Yeah. Go in action is bad. Sorry, Kennedy, Bill Kennedy, and everybody. I love you, but that book is horrible. I mean, it's full of errors, like real substantial errors. And I had to correct some of them. I actually had to make a whole project that corrected one of the things that's in it regarding Go routines and stuff. And I was like, look, I am not the best Go programmer. I am not even. I wouldn't even call myself advanced. But yeah, you know, the problem with books in general. And by the way, this is just a generic criticism of books, is that books tend to have problems because they're so permanent, right? Especially tech books. I just, this is why I haven't written one. If I ever actually write a book, it'll be a generic book about, oh, I don't know, my, there and never back again, my journey out of the Mormon church, or, some sort of fiction or something. I just cannot get behind technical publications because the landscape changes so quickly that it's just not the right medium for it. I mean, if you don't know where to go for the errata, and which, you're going to get, oh, this is why I would rather, you can read that. Yeah. So, I mean, this is why when people get all excited about Gitbook and LeanPub and all of this stuff, I'm like, okay, but are you going to, I mean, there's kind of a sickness in IT, in the IT industry, and I have definitely caught this before, and I think it relates to our egos, but there's something about being able to say that I'm published, that appeals to us, but the premise of it is entirely false. And I know that people mean well, and I know that people are coming to it from an academic perspective where you have to have a book. You've never read a programming book, right? Exactly. So, and people, my age and older are particularly susceptible to this disease because this is all we had. I love my O'Reilly collection, my O'Reilly book collection with all the Perl stuff in there. I loved it. Okay. I'll tell you a quick story here. So when I went to, when I was at Nike, I was the webmaster at Nike for a while and brought them, built their intranet and everything. And, so I've told this story before, but I'll give you a quick version of it since this is going on YouTube. So I went to, I'll do a close up for my storytelling. How about that? Okay. I have to set my coffee before I get into this. So my manager, Barb, if you're out there, she probably isn't, but love you. And she would send me off to go to these trainings, right? So I went to PLSQL training in Seattle for Oracle. I mean, this is the 90s. Okay. I went to training in Corba, in Milpitas, California, which is, Silicon Valley. I'm not, it's not, and these trainings that I would go to cost like $3,000, right? I mean, just the training itself cost $1,500, and the airline was probably, the flight was probably 100, 200, and they put us up in really great places. So, so I think you know what I'm talking about, right? So there was a time in the 90s. I think this time has passed now. There was a time in the 90s where if you were in IT, it was kind of assumed that you had an X number of dollars to spend on yourself per year for self-improvement. I mean, this is pre-internet. This is you have to learn it yourself. This is pre-modern IT culture, right? This was a time when the employer was expected to employ and take care of their employees. This does not exist anymore. I mean, there are some companies that still do this, but very few do. Most of them, it's a contractual obligation for you to stay current. And if anything, they give you Friday off, like today, to go learn stuff and keep up, right? Okay. So given that preface, I was, given this money to, and so I went up to this Oracle. I'm going to make fun of the Oracle one, right? So I went up to this Oracle training for this PL/SQL training, and these companies do their darndest, Oracle, IBM, everybody, to make sure that nobody can get the information unless they go to their training. I mean, they're real gatekeepers. There's one thing that I'm glad that does not really exist anymore, It's that. The chances of finding a huge enterprise application that you can't learn about unless you go attend some sort of training, how's it going, are lower than they've ever been before. I mean, even PBS, which is, the portable batch system, which is, out of NASA, it's very proprietary. But the whole thing's open source now. You can go read this stuff. And then because you can read the source code, you have a lot of people from the industry that are producing content about it, some of which is out of date, some of which is up to date, whatever. But there's a community that can keep this stuff up to date. And that's the primary distinction that I'm trying to draw here with this story. So I went to the Oracle thing, and I'm sitting there and we're going through the thing. I'm like, okay, I was really doing my darndest to learn it, mostly because I felt guilty because I was away from my wife and young sons at the time, toddlers, and she was suffering, back home, and I was, living the high life on my corporate training. I felt really guilty. And it's funny because that guilt really led me to focus when I would go on these corporate trainings. But the other people that were there, not from my company, but the other people there, no. They were getting drunk every day. They did nothing. They were slumbering off and not doing shit in class. They did not. I obviously didn't learn it. They were treating the entire experience as if it was a big party and it was their, reward for working hard for a company. And the problem is that everybody at the end of the training week got the same certificates of completion saying that they finished it. Every single person got it. It was like the worst. It was like if you take corporate America and you take, gold star, everybody gets a trophy mentality and combine the two. It was the worst possible combination. Let's sign off on professionals that have this new certification. It wasn't a certification. It was a certificate, which is different. Certificate of completion. And so they could get away with giving a piece of paper for somebody who just showed up, hung over every day, and didn't do the work. Right. Meanwhile, I was a Mormon and I had, a strong work ethic. I felt guilty, as I said, because I had like an $80 per diem. I was eating like a king in these restaurants, and I felt so guilty. So I worked my ass off to learn that stuff. And I was confused because some of the documentation wasn't very good. And I was constantly going up to the teacher. My wife does this too. She's the same way. And yeah. And I was Mormon. Yeah, for sure. That's a different topic altogether. We'll talk. So me and, these other people, and I would go up and I would constantly give feedback to the teacher. And I kid you not, sometimes I would go to the teacher and I would say, I would provide feedback. I'd say, this particular section right here is a little unclear. What if you did it like this? And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Because why? Because even the people teaching these classes were just flipping the pages. They were just flipping the pages and covering the material that was developed by some other group. They didn't even give a shit either. They were like doing their job. They were like showing up and doing their job, and the other guy, were getting money. And that's no surprise that corporations have finally gotten wise to this and said, so the people who took advantage of these things, there's a point, I promise. There's a point at which management said, we don't have the extra money to waste on these people going out on these benders and calling it training. Or conferences. By the way, it's conference season right now, and let's be real, that's what it is. Conference season is like an opportunity to go out on a bender with your friends that you don't get to see all the time, make new friends, hear some rando talk from somebody that you really respect that you can't meet. It's like a concert. And it's great. It's great for networking, but for learning, no. Conferences are horrible for learning. Has anybody ever learned anything at a conference? No. You can learn anything in any one of those conference talks in like 1/5 of the time by just doing basic research on the internet. You make some, yes. So, the conferences is just a big open bar, right? So I'm talking the truth here, and unfortunately, and I recorded and dumped onto YouTube. He says, anyway, yeah, so why spend $800 to $1,000 to go to this conference? And now I just made, hey, Black Mouse, I made a ton of like negative, connections here, because I'm not telling you to not go to a conference, but if you go to a conference for, just own it. You're going there because you want to have fun. You want to meet your friends that are in the industry. You want to network and you want to learn about, you want to, rub shoulders with people and get ideas. Guess what? You can do that on Twitch too, right? How many times have I like rubbed shoulders with people in this Twitch stream and met people? Black Mouse comes to mind. I mean, everybody. And, people are like, oh, you don't want to do that. You want to use Cordia and Acera. Oh, you don't want to use PFSense. You want to use OpenSense. I didn't even know it existed until somebody in Twitch told me. You can do all of it without spending a fucking dime. There's my F word for this one stream. And that's my point. So this is what happened. Back to my story. Okay. So I am at this, this thing. I felt so guilty. One of the nights I actually attended the Seattle temple for Mormon church and did work for the dead. That's what the Mormons do in those big, beautiful temples, is they do work by proxy. They get baptized by proxy for dead people. And I felt so guilty that I actually, one of my free nights, I was like, no, I'm going to be better than this. I actually drove to the temple and went to the temple by myself so that I could try to alleviate the guilt I felt being away from my family, who was, suffering. I was very young. I mean, it was in my 20s and my 30s, young 20s actually. And it's hard work to be a parent at that age. And I believe I did I could have done a better job, but I was so busy trying to make money because I was the only one who made money in the family, because women are told it's not your job to make money. Your job is to nurture children. That is an exact quote. And, man, your job is to make the money. And so living with that guilt, I did really well. I performed really well. I learned PL SQL. I left. I realized that it was no different than later on, like 5 years later, I learned Postgres from scratch by going down and printing out the entire Postgres manual and reading it, page by page, and going to the online resources and everything. And that's what this started. We'll get back to the Postgres stuff, because Postgres has covered the perfect way to learn something, and we'll get to that. Oracle, not so much, right? Oracle and DB2, if you wanted to learn it, you had to pay the money. You better damn well learn it while you're there. I knew people when I was at IBM that had saved all of their notes from the training, because those were literally the only documents about how to use DB2. The IBM had completely and totally shut down every other publication about how to use DB2, period. And so I remember because we were having trouble using DB2 and there was no place to go learn it at all. So if you either paid the exceptionally large amounts of money to go to these trainings on DB2, or you didn't learn it. This is why DB2 people were making $150K a year in 1997. That is not an exaggeration. They were some of the highest paid IT people on the planet, because they had gone through these trainings, and and that usually they couldn't pay for themselves because the corporations had. IBM was all about catering to corporate money, right? So if you were lucky, your company would agree to send you to the training, and then you get. And so seriously, like if you would go to your coworker and say, "Hey, can I borrow your training materials on DB2?" They're like, "Oh no. I mean, you can look at them while I'm here looking over your shoulder, but I am not getting," because it was like gold. It was like gold. It was literally the only documentation about how to use DB2 that was understandable. It's not about DB2. Yeah. Trying to figure out how to extract it. So that's a different thing. Yeah. So Big Blue DB2. Yeah. And I'm not stressed, but so the point of it is that, the IBM and DB2, which I didn't have any direct experience with other than that, is the epitome of this old school thinking of gatekeeping knowledge for corporate training and stuff, right? And we wonderfully live in a time in 2022 where this has totally changed. This is not the way it is anymore. And if you try to do that, God help you, because you will get, drawn and quartered by, metaphorically by the industry for doing that, because it's just not cool to do that anymore. And yeah, So the Oracle story ended with me going home and just having all of these notes that went on my shelf, which by the way sucked, right? Because they're these like 3-ring binders that don't really fit in your shelf very well, and you can't search them, and there's no other digital materials. It's not like now, where you can search through things. And it was just horrible. And you have to go like thumb through, like, oh yeah, how's that query done? And it was always bad. It was always out of date, and they didn't have. It was the only place to get training. So there was no there was no free market to force them, at least in this case, the PL SQL stuff, to fix it. So, I'm complaining about all the errors in errata and Go in Action, right? Right now. But you can go, the community, the industry can say, okay, you suck. You screwed this up. Go fix it. and they can make errata, and they can go in there and they can make a fix it. But when you're the only person providing the training, if you're the Oracle that's providing the only training, there is no market pressure whatsoever for your training to be improved at all. And it shows, because the training is just horrible. I mean, it's just horrible. It's just so bad. It was so fraught with errors. The language was wrong. It had spelling errors in it. But that's the only thing. So you're still holding on to that like a piece of platinum in your shelf because you don't want to get rid of it. Oh, I know Oracle's going down because they're still holding on to this old idea. And if IBM's not careful, they're going to go down too because of it. They're much, much bigger. They should have gone down a long time ago. But anyway, so this was before, right? And so based on that, this is the best part of the story. Okay. This is the climax of the story, right? And then we'll do the catharsis after that. So I came back and I was so disgusted by the whole process. And it wasn't the first time. I mean, I had done the same thing where they tried to shove Corba down our throats in like 5 days. If you don't know Common Object Request Broker, just thank God and your lucky stars. Every time I see IDL, which they still use, the interface definition language, they still use that to specify stuff like HTML and other things. And it still makes me sick to my stomach every time I see it because it's just such a bad technology, and it's so glad it died. But yeah, I paid, the company, I paid thousands of dollars for me to learn that stuff. But still, that one wasn't the one. Like SOAP, oh my God, yeah. And so, I just don't, we don't even want to, let's just pretend we agreed to never talk about it again. But let's just, there's a little sidebar here. This is why when you hear me get really passionate about something that I know is bad technology, that I know is going to die, it's because I've seen things die. I've seen things come. I'm old enough to have seen things come on the scene, be the hottest thing ever, have everybody deploy it, spend thousands of dollars of training, and then have it drop in the toilet like the turd it is. So, that's where I'm coming from a lot of times, because I see another turd, and CoffeeScript, big old turd, So anyway, I don't know. We're going to find out about Kubernetes. So anyway, I come back from training disgusted. And then it is part of our culture. It is to have to go through this process. And I went to Barb and I said, Barb, I said, thank you so much. She goes, how was your training? She was all excited. She was expecting me to be all happy and everything because she just sent me on this, training / bender party, and I came back and I was like, I was just depressed. I was depressed. And I was like, it was good and all, but it's like, I was just so depressed by how wasteful it was. And she goes, oh, do tell, and she sat me down and I sat there. I remember in her office and, I could see the parking lot behind her. I remember. And we had a conversation. I said, look, first of all, I was away from my young family for a while and it was kind of hard for me to be away. And I was just disgusted at the content. I could have learned that. Most of that stuff, other than the proprietary stuff, I said a lot of that stuff, I think I could have learned much faster and cheaper had I just had access to a bunch of O'Reilly books. And she goes, well, tell me about that. And I said, well, what if next year, you give me half of the money. All right. So you give me half of the 2,500 or the 3,000 or whatever it is. And I believe it was around $1,000, $1,500. You give me half of the money next year and you don't, and you just expect me to learn what I need to, and I will report to you about what I learned, and I will just go buy books and I'll learn it myself. And I did that. I followed through on that, and I commuted, right? So I commuted by train at the time, a train or bike, something like 25 miles each way, and so a lot of my time was spent on public transportation. To this day, I have a really, really strong love for public transportation. When I see a bus go by on the street, I get a warm, fuzzy Christmas feeling. It's really amazing. Holiday feeling, whatever you want to call it. Because I have come to associate being on public transportation with this just like, kind of nestled in your little, seat with you got your pack and I'd pull my O'Reilly book out and I would just like consume every page, just like with intense detail, and I'd write notes on it, and I didn't have to think about anything else. I could look up and, ponder life and watch the people go by. And I absolutely I don't understand why people don't like public transportation. I really don't, because it's such a wonderful escape because you literally can just sit there. Yeah, I would put my headphones on or whatever so people wouldn't talk to me, and I it's not underground. It's awesome for me. Oh, I know. Uh, and try to, oh, I cannot even imagine what the metro in Paris is like. Yeah, and is it that bad? Well, I mean, okay, so subways and stuff like that. I mean, I think you can make the best of a situation. Uh, Sometimes there's dangerous things happening. Sometimes there's, I mean, whatever. I mean, not all public transportation is equal. But the point I'm trying to make is, so I mean, imagine how many books in 1997 I could buy for $1,500, and I did. I will never forget the first when I got when they gave me the check. I went down to Powell's Books, which is a huge bookstore. It's famous for being one of the biggest bookstores ever in Oregon. They were kind of the first. And I went to Powell's Books, which had a huge tech section, and there was just like this Technicolor wall of O'Reilly books, and I literally bought every fucking book. I didn't even know what DNS and bind were at the time. I didn't know what um, expect was or TCL TK and I still have some of those books, and I just I bought them all, man. I bought them all. I bought TCP/IP Illustrated 2, which is how I learned about packets and networking. That's still to this day, that's the primary place that I learned what an ITCP and IP packet actually looks like. Like how to break down the ones and zeros and how the envelope works, and the header on it, and what's the difference between an ICMP packet and I mean, all of that stuff I learned just by flipping pages in TCP/IP Illustrated. And that is, and I feel like I got a very good education from all of that. Now, was some of it probably out of date? Yeah, but I didn't know because it was my first exposure to it. And I think that's still one of the downsides of books, because especially tech books, because like if you pull up the wrong book, if I had pulled up the wrong Go book, I would have had to relearn, all of that stuff. Give me an example of this. Recently, I pulled the wrong resource on OpenAPI, right? So there's an OpenAPI 2 and there's an OpenAPI 3. They are not the same. And if you learn OpenAPI 2, it might taint your brain a little bit more than you would like, because OpenAPI 3 is what everybody's writing for. Yeah. So, well, okay. So, I mean, the comment is there about, YouTube tutorials are just fool's gold of information compared to learning from books. So there are benefits to learning from books. So the end of that story is that, life was good because I learned from books. I learned from the books, but the books had tiny projects in there. But I didn't really learn Perl, for example, until I really dug in and I started writing. The first program I wrote was fb.pl, which processed form mail. And I had to write things and I had to make up my own projects. And I suppose I had the desire to do that. So I went forth and made my own projects when there wasn't really anything outlined in the book at all. Because it's one thing to just flip through the pages. It's another thing, and it's like, and by the way, just flipping through the pages is worth it too, and reading them, because then you might read about a thing and then you don't really remember it later. And then you go, oh, there's that thing that I read about that one time over there, right? So this is pretty much pre-internet. I mean, the internet, there was no Google yet, right? There was no Google. There was no way to search anything instantaneously. There was just books. I mean, and that was the same way with Java. I literally had three. I remember paper cuts from flipping through my big, huge Java books that I paid $75 a piece for when I was coding for Nike, when I was doing the Java backend stuff for their carton thing. And so what I can tell you is that algorithms to C. Yeah, I reading that I actually have that one. Yeah, and so some books actually maintain their value longer than others. Books that are on technology that have been that's really established, like C, things like that. They're gonna stay around for a while, and so yeah, it's good. I really like it. That the algorithms book and C. I kind of want to go through it. I promised everybody I was going to go through and learn Erlang. Last Christmas, I promised I was going to learn Erlang this Christmas, but I'm actually missing C a lot. I know that's really lame, that weird to say, but I am. I'm really, really missing C. So we might go forward and do that. So anyway, I paid less money. I bought the books and I didn't go to corporate training. And we live in a time now, though, where anything that's in pretty much any book can be found on the internet. Like literally anything, pretty much anything. And it's going to be formed in a different way. And a lot of times, technology is moving so quickly, particularly in cloud native and in web development, that there are no books. And I have a theory about this. I mean, we've talked about this with Go before. There's no money in writing a book. There's money in coding in Go and doing conferences and corporate training still. So I think that, I mean, I'm going to get in trouble here, but on the Go list, there's really no financial motivation for anybody to update any of the books. And this is part of the sickness that we have, is that for some reason we think that once we're published that we're good. You know, so anytime a technologist, and I'm just going to give something up about myself here, but anytime I meet a technologist at a conference or online or something like that, and they kind of trout out the fact that they've written a book and they're proud of it, I won't lie, I categorize them. Oh, someone who's written a book and thinks they're the shit, right? And I am not attacking anybody, but if you pay attention, you will see people on YouTube and on Twitch and at conferences and in your circles who, for some reason, because they published a book, think that they are better than everybody else. And it's kind of obvious. There's something about our culture, our IT culture, that I think unjustifiably awards people who have written books, even if the books are shit, out of date, or they have no intention of ever writing another one again. So it's like, oh, I wrote a book, I'm cool. And it's like, you know, it's hype, and they check the box, it's on the resume. And I think it's probably some form of the disease of academia, where if you're not published, you don't matter. Right? In academia, if you're not published, you don't exist. You're completely irrelevant. And I, you know, but so yeah, you know, it's, I think that that's where it comes from. I can't say that for sure, but it's completely unfounded in any level of objectivity, because it depends on the book. For C++, it's still relevant. Yeah, because the technology is slower. It doesn't change as much, right? And so, unfortunately, the people that are trying to do the learning pay the price here, because they have no way to know. And somebody who's been published, once they've been published, doesn't matter how old the book is. I mean, there are books written for Go that don't even cover 1.13 that are still touted out as the best thing to go read, and the authors are still, you know, heralded as the best authors in Go. And I'm picking on the Go community a little bit here, but this exists everywhere, right? And so there's this, like, you know, there's a certain type of person in our culture who is like chasing after this reputation from having put a book out. And I've been victim to it before. I mean, I absolutely know that I could write multiple books, and I've started several, but I actually got halfway done with polyglot programming, learn to code in 3 languages at the same time. There's another book I started called A Wizard's First Spellbook, which is a very colorful, you know, way it had like D&D and paint, and, you know, really child's-like paintings and stuff in it, to teach really, really young kids how to code properly. You try to find a book to teach a young person to code, like under 12. They're so bad. In fact, I redid the entire main project in a Teach Your Kids to Pro book on Amazon, and I still get notifications. Thank you for doing this, because it's absolute shit. It's some of the worst Python code I've ever seen. And yet this is the thing that all the moms are buying and dads are buying for their kids, and they're giving it to them. I'm like, this thing is completely horrible. And I went through and I said, this is why this is all bad. And I went through, but nobody wants to write the book, because the people that are making money writing good code are not writing books. And I hate to put it that way, but that's what it is. But the people who actually know this stuff, What are they doing? They're writing code. And that's why, and this is kind of a conclusion here, the single best way to learn how to code, hands down, is to identify 2 or 3 or 10 fantastic projects in the space. And that, if it's Kubernetes, that means, identifying companies or people who have already deployed Kubernetes and become their best friend. Or if the project is available online, and I've mentioned some of them for Go in my beginner boost, you can go watch that. So like the Kind project, for example, right? Ben the Elder is a fantastic Go programmer, and you can go read through the source code. And this isn't just my advice. So if you know who TJ Hollowaychuk is, you should. If you've ever done any front-end programming and you've ever used Express or Pug or Jade or any number of other things, you know TJ Hollowaychuk. He's the most prolific front-end developer. He wrote Farewell to Node, which in 2014 convinced me to start coding in Go instead of Node. And it's absolutely hands down one of my top 5 human beings in terms of IT culture. He's never accepted a single dollar of venture capital, by the way. Completely self-taught. Also a crazy, amazing artist and photographer. TJ Hollowaychuk. So, what is there's only one video of him on the internet at all, which may cause people to think he's a myth. And his one piece of advice, and I'm going to go play it. I'm just going to go play it. I'm going to go play it because it'll be fun and we have the internet here, okay? TJ Hollowaychuk, YouTube. Give me a second here. I want you to hear what he has to say. Because there's another video. TJ Hollowaychuk is a hive mind. They think he's fake. They don't even think he's real. So he went to Brazil. This is quite a while ago. There it is. The JS conference in Argentina in 2012. Here's the name. I'll put it in the chat. Okay, so at risk of getting demonetized or whatever, I really don't care, but let me give you the link to this. Let me share the link with you on this. Copy video URL. So paste. So if you're just listening, you can go to YouTube and you can search for TJ space Brazil JS JS Conf, and you should be able to find it. But these are all amazing people, all of them. I mean, I'll let you. It's just kind of an Easter egg game you can play here. But all of these people are seriously important. This Isaac is one of the guys that I like the least in this group. This is the guy who rushed NPM out and caused the world to have the worst worm in history because he wanted to make money. But and actually Ryan Dahl throws him under the bus in 10 Things He Hates About Node. But a lot of these other people have good things to say. This is 2012, right? This is back when Node was at the height of its craziness, and this is when he rammed NPM down Ryan Dahl's throat, and the rest is history. So I mean, if you did in the front end world, you know these names. This guy did. I think this is the guy who did Bootstrap from Twitter. I can't remember. Not Bootstrap. Whatever. There they are. Learn Boost, and they're related to Learn Boost. Anyway, so I'm gonna get to there's TJ. Okay. So this is literally the only video footage of TJ Hollowaychuk in existence that anybody knows of. And I'm going to go ahead and play it. So he's asked a question.
Yep.
I'm TJ Hollowaychuk. I work with LearnBoost as well. And my tip, I guess, is that even when people say, don't reinvent things, I think that you should, because it's going to teach you something. So even if it's out there already, dive into their code and maybe even rewrite the whole thing just to learn about it.
Amazing. What?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay. So I'm going to repeat what he said. So he said, even if somebody tells you not to rewrite some other existing code, dive into it and rewrite it to see if you understand it. Basically, take existing projects. What's really funny about him, and oh wait, I didn't show him on screen. So I'm gonna replay it. I'm gonna replay it because it's short. It's short and it's worth hearing again. I mean, I could play it like 10 times. I would still be, because we're talking about the most prolific node programmer and who then started his own business doing Go stuff. Oh, here we go again.
I'm
Yeah.
TJ Holloway-Chuck. I work with LearnBoost as well. And my tip, I guess, is that even when people say, like, don't reinvent things, I think that you should, because it's going to teach you something. So even if it's out there already, dive into their code and maybe even rewrite the whole thing just to learn about it.
I love how he moves his eyes right there.
What?
Because this guy has rewritten. He's done that exact thing and reformed the entire industry. So, he didn't know anything of it about coding, right? He followed that practice, and he went into stuff that was already existed. He's like, why are you reinventing it? I was like, well, let's just see what we can do here. And he went ahead and this is from last. I did a whole thing about that yesterday, the mechanical keyboard stuff, and seriously, those are the only recorded words in all of YouTube from TJ Holloway-Chuck, or at least someone who purports to be TJ Holloway-Chuck. And full disclosure, TJ and I have exchanged Twitter, stuff before in a positive way, and I'm a huge fanboy because this guy's 100% self-taught. And so when he finally is pinned down and asked, how did you do this? What did you do? How did you learn so amazingly? He goes, I just go find really great projects. I find the best projects. And then I look at the code and say, I wonder if I rewrote this, what it would look like. And then he uses that as the solution at the back of the book, the finished existing product. And he goes into it and writes something from scratch. And he says, well, he basically refactors existing projects. And even if it doesn't ever become the thing that gets used, or he doesn't keep it around, he's the learning opportunity. He gets to say, well, why did they do it that way? And so the entire process is one huge master's degree in how to do that thing. So that's kind of the best between project-based learning, where you have a thing you just imagine that you want to do, like him or hate him, Zuckerberg, that's his recommendation in the code.org video a long time ago. He said, it's not that hard to learn. You just start making something for you and your friends, and then he wasn't talking about Facebook. He was talking about his family actually before that. And he just kept adding something to it and reading about how to do it and then changing it and improving it. And that's how Zuckerberg learned everything he knows. Now, I mean, he's not as good of an example as TJ in my opinion, but yeah. What? Oh, right. And my entire coffee talk yesterday was about mechanical keyboards, so you have to go watch it. I'm not gonna rehash it today. I'm sorry. People in the chat are seeing the notes because I changed views there, and they're reading my notes from yesterday's coffee talk. So that's in there. You can go watch that. We are about to wrap up because I have work to do, and it is 9:00. So that's my take on it. I think that that's probably the best way to learn is to go find existing good projects. Now, make sure you don't pick the wrong project, right? If you pick the wrong project, you're going to end up learning, how to code Go so that it looks like Java, which would be the entire Kubernetes code base. The Kubernetes code base, I'm sorry to say, is very bad. It does the job, but it's absolutely ugly code. You might think Hugo is a place to go learn to go. It's totally horrible. And it's bad. A lot of the projects that are the most popular projects are not necessarily the ones that are written the best. Take Minecraft, for example, right? A lot of people want to learn Java for Minecraft, and Minecraft has got one of the worst code bases of Java ever created by human beings. And Notch should be the first one to tell you that. He'd be like, I was just playing around with Java because I wanted to learn it, and I did it. It's horrible. But that became the standard, and so all this technical debt has been hard-coded into it. I would suggest that that's the case with Kubernetes, that that's the case with Cobra, that that's the case with Hugo. And so what I would do is I would look for code like Kind, which is really good. Kind is is a code base, sort of a Minikube replacement. And I mean, you can ask around and find code that's better. I have actually talked about this in the Beginner Boost. If you go to the Beginner Boost series, there is a day where we spend at least an hour talking about the best Go learning resources, and we go through and I have this conversation all over again. And yeah, you learn code by making MC mods, yes, and I mean, and that's fine. You're making mods, you're learning how to do things, and usually that's enough. And here's the real reveal here. You only have to know enough coding, first of all, to get the job, which means that, and by the way, getting the job is almost always not going to be passing a leak code test. Almost always. It's going to be showing off stuff that you have made, and being able to talk about it, that you've made or you've contributed to the internet, and then talking about those things. Most jobs are that way. There are a lot of jobs that have the gatekeeping interview, the coding test, and all that. And frankly, I run screaming from those jobs. I hate them because they are not assessing anything but my ability to be stressed out in front of a whiteboard, which doesn't say anything about my ability to do anything. I absolutely hate them. I will never apply for any of those jobs. I don't care how good it is. But if you look at the other side of this, so producing, value. So the reveal is that companies, at least in the operations space, they don't care that you know every single thing there is to know about the language, right? That's not what they care about. What they care about is, can you produce when you're asked to produce? And any company worth its salt, they're not morons, is going to know that you are not going to be able to keep all the knowledge about every coding technique and every possible cloud native technology available at the forefront of your mind. They know that you can't do that. So what they're going to look for is your ability to learn and adapt. And the method of learning that TJ outlines there teaches you that. You are learning, you're adapting, you're evaluating the code, whether it be a coding task or an architecture task, you are making decisions about how things should be done. And that's what they want to get from you. They want to make sure you can learn fast and that you can process and that you can produce, but they're not expecting specific memorization. They're not expecting me to spit out how to do a Go routine with a switch handler, which I would have to look up every time because I don't do it every day. And they don't want to know that. They want to know that you generally know what a linked list is and that kind of thing. But more importantly, they want to know that you can produce and that you know how to teach yourself and that you've established a pattern for helping yourself learn those things without having to be, spoon-fed to a training every year. And has kind of become the theme of this coffee talk. I didn't mean it to, but it has. Check out GoKit, GoFlag, HTTP. Yeah, more at a higher level. So anything written by Rob Pike, okay? So the entire Go source code, the Go template engine, oh my God. The Go text HTML template engine is so well written. So the actual Go source code itself, which by the way, is the basis for one of the things you should consider mandatory learning and reading, and that is the Go project guidelines. There, and this is all listed. If you go to rdbx.gg/lang/go, you'll see the listing of the actual specification for the language. And I'm just pulling Go out of the air because that's someone we're talking about. And there's a link there to the Go commit guidelines, and they make you read them and sign off on them before you can commit. And they tell you things like your error messages should never begin with an initial cap, and the idiomatic stuff that ultimately made it into Learning Go, which is an O'Reilly book that's out there. It's pretty good right now, but it assumes you already know how to code. It's not for beginners. So, you can go read these things. I think the Go project itself, the takeaway from that is the Go project itself is full of language, that code that's been written. Some is better and some is worse. If you want to learn how to make how to write the most performant language parser on the planet, and this is objectively the case, the Go compiler is the fastest compiler on planet Earth, hands down. And a Go language was made frankly, with compilation time above everything else as a priority. Because, and Rob Pike jokes about this, Go was conceived while they were waiting 24 hours for the C code to compile at Google. And so if you want to read, I mean, there's at least 3 parsers and scanners in Go. There's the regular one. There's the one for the Go compiler itself. There's the one for text HTML, which is there's an hour and 15-minute long video from Rob Pike on how he wrote that and came to write that. If that sort of thing is your thing, what is the switchgraph? You need to go read about it. So the main thing that they did to make it faster compile is they did crazy things like force all import statements to be at the top of the package, right? To force a package. I mean, they took the lessons learned from macros and stuff like that in C, and they built a language primarily with compilation speed in mind, which is literally the polar opposite of Rust. Rust built their language with with flexibility and coolness in mind, and this whole memory safety thing, which has caused compilation times to be abysmally bad. If they tried to rewrite Rust at Google for their core application, they would be waiting days for it to compile. This is why, and I'm going to stick by this, this is why Rust will never, ever replace Go for applications of that scale. This is why Go is the cloud native tool of choice. Because of this, it's designed for very, very large projects with lots and lots of moving parts that want to benefit from concurrent, very simple concurrency that's easy to manage, and all the stuff that Go gives you. If you were to take any of those code bases, I'm super interested to see how this plays out, because there hasn't been a huge code base in Rust that I'm aware of besides Firefox at all. And I have no way of knowing how long it would take to compile Firefox, but I just want to see. I mean, there are no like 10 million line code projects in Rust yet. And as they, but slow indeed, it's like, it's very helpful in everything. But if you're an enterprise who want stuff to compile faster, Go actually compiles faster than Python. So Python has to compile stuff too to get it to bytecode and then run it, right? You can compile and run. You can do Go run the exact same code that's in Python, and it will compile and run faster than Python because its interpreter is even faster, because the compiler is faster, the scanner is faster. And this all came about because I was telling you, go read the scanner. If you want to read absolutely elegant code and you want to understand why GoTo is very much still alive today, to avoid loop iterations and stuff like that. It's just, oh God, it's just gorgeous. I mean, I learned so much. Why are they doing that? Why are they doing this? I was like looking through the whole scanner and I was asking the questions. Hey, thank you. And I just have to tell you that is really the way to go. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of RMs. We'll talk about that another day. I am just getting ready to go. Actually today, I don't think we're gonna raid somebody this morning, because I am gonna move on and we're gonna end the YouTube coffee talk, and then after that, I'm gonna be immediately doing my home lab init, and it's more boring stuff, but I'm gonna be setting up etcd at home. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna do now. So YouTube, bye YouTube. Everybody say goodbye to YouTube. Say goodbye to YouTube. Bye YouTube. All right.